You think you are looking at the world. Most of the time, you are looking at memory. That sounds abstract until it starts ruining your life. You meet a face and decide, instantly, whether it is safe. You hear a tone in someone's voice and your body reacts before your mind has formed a sentence. You walk into a room, open an app, read a message, and something in you has already decided what this moment is. Not because you are irrational, because the brain is fast, and speed has a cost. A camera records what is there. A time machine brings old material into the present. The human mind is much closer to the second thing. What you call perception is often recognition. What you call identity is often repetition. And what you call the self may be a memory system speaking in the first person with such confidence that you stop noticing it was quoting the past. This is not a spiritual claim. It is more disturbing than that. Because if the observer is mostly the past, then a frightening amount of your life has already been edited before you arrive to live it. There is a reason certain ideas hit people like an electric shock. One of them is this: the observer is the past. Not metaphorically, functionally. The moment you see something, your mind does not meet it as a blank field. It meets it with language, memory, category, comparison, fear, desire, and 1,000 tiny stored reactions. Before you say tree, something in you has already recognized tree. Before you say danger, something in you has already calculated danger. Before you say, "This reminds me of my father," your nervous system may already be halfway through the reaction. This is useful. It keeps you alive. If every experience had to be processed from zero, you would not last long. Memory is not a design flaw. It is infrastructure. But the infrastructure slowly becomes a prison when you forget that it is there. When recognition becomes so fast that it feels like truth, you stop asking a very important question. Am I seeing what is here, or am I seeing what has been here before? A lot of modern suffering begins in that confusion. Not because the past is evil, because the past is efficient. And efficiency is not the same thing as clarity. One of the most useful lies the mind tells is that recognition and perception are the same event. They are not. Recognition says, "I know what this is." Perception says, "What is this?" Recognition closes, perception opens. Recognition is fast, economical, and heavily automated. Perception is slower, stranger, and much more expensive. And because the world rewards speed, most of us are trained to live inside recognition. We do not meet the person in front of us, we meet our category of them. We do not meet the present emotion, we meet the stored theory of what that emotion means. We do not meet silence, we meet our discomfort with silence. This is why people can repeat the same relationship with different faces. It is why the same insult can keep working for 20 years. It is why certain ambitions feel personal even when they were inherited. The present arrives once, the past arrives with backup, and the backup is usually louder. Some people call this conditioning, some call it trauma, some call it ego. Some neuroscientists describe the brain as a prediction machine, constantly using old data to guess what comes next. Use whatever language you want, the mechanism is the same. Yesterday gets there first. Now we get to the uncomfortable part. Because once you see that perception is contaminated by memory, the next question appears almost automatically. How much of my personality is actually mine? And the answer, for most people, is not flattering. A huge portion of what we call personality is just stable repetition, repeated preferences, repeated defenses, repeated stories, repeated emotional choreography. You were praised for being useful, so now you call anxiety responsibility. You were ignored, so now you call self-erasure kindness. You were wounded by humiliation, so now you call control intelligence. The pattern hardens, then it gets branded. Soon it is no longer, "This is a strategy my nervous system learned." It becomes, "This is who I am." That sentence has saved a lot of people from chaos. It has also trapped a lot of people inside old software, because the self is very good at defending whatever helped it survive, even when that same pattern is now what keeps life narrow, repetitive, and dead. This is why the self feels so immediate. It has been rehearsed, it has lines, it has timing. It knows where to become offended, where to become desirable, where to become silent, where to become superior, where to become ashamed. And because the performance is continuous, we confuse continuity with truth. But repetition is not proof. It is only evidence of rehearsal. The most dangerous thing about the self is not that it is false. It is that it is persuasive. It arrives in first person. It does not announce itself as an archive. It says, I want, I fear, I hate, I know, I remember, I am. That grammatical trick is powerful. It turns accumulated pattern into authority. And once pattern has authority, it begins governing the present like a regime that claims democratic legitimacy because it has been in power for a long time. That is why certain reactions feel morally obvious when they are actually historically conditioned. That is why your mind can defend an old wound as if it were a principle. That is why an identity built on repetition can feel sacred. The machine says me, and the body obeys. It is not magic. It is recursion. A memory notices itself. A reaction defends itself. A narrative recruits evidence to keep existing. And because this entire process is happening at tremendous speed, the result feels less like construction and more like essence. That feeling is the trap. Once something feels essential, interrogation starts to feel like violence. Now you understand why people defend their suffering with such dignity, why they protect their labels, why they prefer familiar pain to unfamiliar freedom. The self is not only a story, it is a story with enforcement power. So what would it actually mean to meet the present? Not as a slogan, not as a meditation app instruction, not as a lifestyle aesthetic involving sunlight and expensive ceramic cups. What would it mean structurally? It would mean a moment in which recognition does not immediately seize control. A moment in which the old label arrives and is seen as old. A moment in which fear begins speaking and you hear the age of the voice. A moment in which the body prepares its familiar reaction and something in you does not fully cooperate. That is much rarer than people think, because the present is expensive. The present asks you to suspend certainty. It asks you to endure the gap between stimulus and interpretation. It asks you to feel reality before your autobiography has explained it. Most people do not want that. Not because they are weak, because explanation feels like safety. The known self, even when painful, is still known. The unlabeled moment is not. And this is why so many people claim to want transformation while secretly bargaining for improved repetition. They do not want to lose the observer. They want the observer to be happier, more spiritual, more optimized, more aesthetically pleasing. But if the observer is the past, then polishing it is not the same thing as freedom. It may just be restoration work on the cage. The brain is a time machine. That is not a poetic flourish. It is a practical warning. It means you can spend years defending what memory has taught you to be, while calling that defense authenticity. It means you can confuse recognition for intelligence, repetition for character, and emotional familiarity for truth. It means that entire identities can be built from inherited reactions and still feel profoundly intimate. And it means that the most important moments of your life may be the ones in which the machine hesitates. Not breaks, not disappears, hesitates. just long enough for you to notice that the voice calling itself me is not always describing the present. Sometimes it is only preserving the past. I do not want to end this with a promise about enlightenment. That language has been abused enough. I want to end with a harder question. If memory stopped narrating you for 10 seconds, if the old recognition circuit loosened its grip just enough for reality to arrive before the label, would you experience freedom, or would you experience the terrifying fact that you have spent most of your life being introduced to the world by someone who no longer lives here?